Hi friends, host Eric here, host Talking with Famous People. I'm here with my good friends Susie and Mark, and I've made a table, a very, very exciting table. And it discusses something that is a difference of opinion between MBTI and Socionics, a difference of understanding how the cognitive functions work, and a point potentially of confusion for a lot of people, including me. So I thought I'd go over this table and make a video about it. First of all, one of the things that's super confusing about Socionics is that they have different numbers for the functions. So I had a hell of a time getting these numbers right, actually, on this thing. But um, 1 is 1, 2 is 2, 3 is 8, 4 is 5, 5 is 7, 6 is 6, 7 is 4, and 8 is 3. So it's a super big pain in the ass. Okay? The point is, this translation thing here, numbers, was difficult to me to get it right. I kept having problems because 6 is 6. And also, they use different names for them in different times, and it's just a pain in the ass. But this, I'm pretty sure this is right. I've really checked it a million times. Alright, so I put ENTP functions here just as a reference point for myself to make it easy. NE is the first function, TI is the second function, FE is the 8th function in Socionics, SI is the 5th function in Socionics, NI is the 7th, TE is the 6th, FI is the 4th function in Socionics, and SE is the 3rd function in Socionics. Okay, so what I want to talk about those is inert and contact, and the mental ring and vital ring. So the mental ring and vital ring comprise Socionics' version of conscious and unconscious functions. And they've got a different notion of which functions are conscious and which functions are unconscious. So they'll say, the Socionics says that the base function, NE, is unconscious. The polar function, FI, is unconscious. The countervalued function, TE, is unconscious. And the ignoring function, NI, is unconscious. You'll note that in that regard they agree with MBTI except for one thing. MBTI would put NE as a conscious function and SE, the 8th slot, as unconscious. But it doesn't work that way in Socionics. They've got your... I use MBTI numbers. 8th slot function for me means SE for ENTP. It's the insecurity function. It's what they call the role function. Socionics calls it the role function. And it's, according to them, a conscious function or a contact function. I'm sorry. No, I'm getting confused here. Let me correct this. The mental ones, the conscious ones, are 1 and 7, your base and polar, and 2 and 8, your creative and insecurity. Okay? So according to Socionics, 1, 7, 2, 8 are conscious, and 5, 6, 3, and 4 are unconscious. Now, I don't know what to make of this mental vital ring thing here in terms of conscious and unconscious, except they do clarify and say that it's mental ring is understood through words, and the vital ring means that it's manifest spontaneously or wordlessly. So when I look at this, I would say that it's not really true that my polar function manifests through words, although I talk about it a lot. I also talk about all the functions a lot because I talk about cognitive functions a lot. I talk about NI a lot. But the point is, abstractly talking about something does not mean it's expressing through words. And I guess it's true that when I'm having strong feelings, I will use words to express them rather than just crying. I guess that's true. Okay. Regardless, it's an interesting distinction here between conscious and unconscious to say that my first slot is in the mental ring, but it's inert. which means what exactly? Well, according to the Wiki Socion, if something's inert, it's basically it doesn't actively engage information in the world, and you don't really get better at it over time, or you can't really improve it or become particularly converse, particularly able to attend in that fashion in a practical, will-directed way. So I'm curious then about why it would be that some things that are inert, in other words, that you can't get better on and apply yourself in a will-directed way, are also in the mental ring. So in other words, I can't it's I can't improve on it, but it's conscious. It's understood through words, but I can't do anything with those words. I can't learn anything or optimize with those words. I don't quite understand why that would be the case. And I guess the point is, well, it's a function that you don't engage actively to get new information in. So in other words, I'm not seeking help in NE. I don't ask somebody else to help me understand what it means to come up with possibilities. And I don't believe I need any further assistance in it. In the same capacity, with the 7th slot function, I'm not interested in any help with it because I don't believe it's something I'll ever be any good at, really. Now, it doesn't mean I don't personally focus on a fair amount on FI, but I get that I'm not going anywhere with it. I don't. It's like I don't know. If that's in the mental ring, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me that they'd make this clear distinction between things that. Let's read exactly what they say about it. Did I still have that thing open? Probably. The functions in the mental ring strive to verbalize information and formulate observations and form the core of an individual's intellectual activity. On the other hand, the functions in the vital ring tend to manifest themselves without words in the process of doing things or inadvertently in the form of spontaneous sentiments. So, 4 is your polar, but they consider that to be something that you strive to verbalize information and formulate observations and form the core of your intellectual activity. That's absolutely not the case with FI, and for me, and it's not really the case at all for SE either. So that seems odd to me. But going back to the table, unless anybody wants to interject anything.
No, that doesn't make sense to me either.
So, okay, here's what they say about these things. And there's some elements of this I agree with and some elements I don't really agree with. So they say slot 1 and 7. I'm using MBTI numbers again here. You're basing your polar. They're inert. So, according to this, you don't really seek out new information in this area. Inert functions are those that do not integrate information from the environment. Thus, the strength of these environment functions remain the way they are. A person does not seek guidance in these areas. They comprise the core of their natural strengths and weaknesses. Whereas contact functions are essentially how we touch upon the environment. They adapt and integrate new experiences from the environment. These are capable of being improved over time through ability or simply new understandings. Alright, so let's look at the ones that they say fall into these categories. They say that your base and your polar are both inert. You can't really improve in these. I agree with that. I don't agree that the polar is in the mental ring. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I don't understand, like, if, well, whatever. I just leave it at that. And then the attribute of these two that I do find of note in the Socionics descriptions is strong judgments are made about reality by these functions automatically or reflexively, and I think that's absolutely true for both NE and FI for me. Is these things are ways that my judgment, like my NE judgment, is the sense that something's wrong because people aren't considering enough possibilities, or that they have forced an action through which has been inadequately ideated. I mean, those values are kind of implicit to me. And same with the FI. When I'm having strong FI feelings, I have difficulty dealing with them. I have a bit of an anger management problem, frankly. So that makes sense to me. The attribute there that I've talked about. In the 6th and 5th slot, that's your tertiary and ignoring. Oh, yeah, this should be
3 and 5?
Yeah, 3 and 5. And this one should be 4 and 6. Is that right? No. No, this should be 6 and 5. It shouldn't say tertiary. That's the problem. 6 and 5, and it should say countervalued and ignoring. Okay, so most unconscious of functions, according to Socionics, are your 5th and 6th slot functions. Your 6th slot countervalued function provides the framework in which tool function attention occurs. That's my explanation, but not really theirs. By providing that which our 2nd slot values are defined against. In other words, TI values define themselves against, as long as we're only dealing with logics, particularism, the particularism of TE. So, that's for me, because of my 2nd and 6th slots. Meanwhile, 1st slot occupies the conscious awareness on the same radio length that the 5th slot uses. So we still attend using 5th slot on some level, but such attention is rarely conscious and mostly not understood meaningfully. In other words, I agree that I think that the 5th slot is your most mysterious function, in the sense that it's the one that you're using it well sometimes, you get the idea of it and everything, but you never seem to catch yourself in the act, or almost never. Now, if we go to I agree with that, the 5th slot. The 6th one, though, I would say that it's a misunderstanding to think that you necessarily can't bridge those valuing disputes, and I think that it's overstating things to say that you can't really be conscious of your 6th slot function. I think you can. It's just that you've got to find bridge areas between your 2nd and 6th. So, okay. 2 and 8, they say, are contact. That means you can get better at them. That's your tool function and your insecurity function. Well, I definitely can get better at my tool function, and I think everybody can, because they're going to be using it to engage in the world all the time, and they are not necessarily seeking help in it, but they're not unwilling to accept help in it and learn new things about it. 8th slot, well, I mean, mine has definitely gotten better over time, but I would say that it really hasn't gotten better in any conscious sense. It's gotten better because I took Adderall, I think. Is that in Socionics somewhere? Where's the Adderall effect? I don't see that. Okay, anyway, so let's go down to the I'm going to read this thing. Tool function is how we consciously attend to matters in the world. It becomes better, each function according to its own metrics over time, almost unavoidably. Insecurity function attention is countervalued like 6th slot, but this coexists with the desire to achieve in the 8th slot attention. Understanding of this function will grow over time, usually in coordination with the seeking 4th slot function. So what I meant by that was, and this is something I just added because the thought occurred to me, is that to the extent my SE has grown over time, it's because I've gotten a better sense of managing SI progression of events. Like, well, I better do that, or because that's coming up. That kind of a thing. And it's gotten better also by my SI pulling back on the amount of commitments, so I have to do less SE. So that's why I put that little thing there. And then the last one on this chart is the fourth and third slots. That's your seeking function, or your suggestive function, as they say in Socionics. And your third function is your tertiary function, or what I would call your aspirational function, perhaps. That's what it says about it. They say it's vital, so in other words, you're not putting it into words very much, but that's clearly not the case with FE and me. I mean, I think very word-based about FE all the time, and it's just, I just don't buy this. It doesn't make any sense that it would be non-mental for me. Also, they say it's a contact one because you can get better at it. I agree with that. You want to come in? Come in. Maybe ran so long to come in the garage here. Okay. There, you can sit on that chair over there, Shirley. That's your chair. So, forced thought development is necessary effect of one's dominant nature. Provided one engages in a somewhat normal developmental arc, one grows in one's understanding of one's base function through the development of the fourth function, which necessarily comprises a manner of attention one cannot engage in concurrently with the dominant mutual exclusivity. Thus, the development is in terms of optimal coordination of the two functions rather than development of either in isolation. Third slot provides the assumed value that an individual upholds as a means of self-legitimization. Metacognition can improve one's conscious understanding of the mechanisms of this function and utilize it in order to optimize the use of the tool function according to the valuings dictated by the third function itself. This function requires effort as it constrains the scope of the tool function, which is the most natural way of dealing with stuff. Most of that stuff in that paragraph is my thoughts on it, not really Socionics' thoughts on it. But this is the table that sort of explains one of the core differences in the structure of it, their renumbering of things, and their assertion that the MBTI conscious-unconscious function dichotomy is inadequate or inaccurate or needed to be changed or something. Thoughts?
Are you still on 2 and 8?
What's that?
2 and 8?
2 and 8? Did I skip them?
No? That's where you are, right?
I think I finished, didn't I?
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I finished. I'm done. You weren't paying attention. Shocking.
Sporadically, I was.
Yeah, I know, Susie. I get it. I understand the way Susie has multiple things in front of her attention at any given moment, and usually she can catch all the important things with one portion of her attention. So, I get that. Sometimes I'll do that shit too. When people will be talking to me and I'm like doing something else concurrently, but they're going so slow and they're talking that I can do it. Okay, Schmitty Rensselaer, you have to go sit on your own chair. Alright, thanks for watching, everybody. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese. The end.